Okay, in this video, we'll look at how to make a bar graph. I've created some data here, and this bar graph is a good idea because we're using category data. We have a bunch of categories, and we have the number of people. Let's assume it's a graph of a chart of favorite fruit, and we want to make a graph of that. So we highlight the data, and we go Insert, Chart, and the chart appears here. I'll move it over just so I can see the text. And it's not the chart I want, but first, just if you ever click off here, that chart editor will disappear. So this second point says, if it disappears, just click on your chart again with a right click and go to data range, and the chart stuff is back. Number 3 says, in chart editor, I don't want a pie graph here. It's not appropriate for this categorical data. Instead, I'm going to click on chart type and scroll down and choose column chart. Now we've got a nice column graph, but there's lots of options to explore here. Number 4, in chart editor, go to customize and choose chart style, and you can try changing the background color to something different. You could change the font to a different font. You could even change the border color. All options you can do. You could even try what maximize looks like. I don't prefer this view. Or 3D. Be careful with 3D because it's sometimes biased. You could also try chart and axis titles, and here you're able to change the chart title. Instead of number of people, you could change it to number of people versus favorite fruit, and that appears right in your graph. You can change the font to something different, maybe back to Arial. You can change the size of the font, and if it's bolded or italicized. Lots of options there. And not just the chart title, you could also add a chart subtitle. So for example, you could add the date that this survey was done. Maybe it was done in Toronto in 2019. And then with that subtitle again, you can change the font and the color and the size to whatever you'd like. You could also change the horizontal axis title, maybe change that font if you wanted. Again, make it bold. Maybe we'll make the vertical axis the same Georgia font, make it bold as well. Whatever you prefer, you can change it as you see fit. In series, there's a couple of nice options you can try here. And again, if you ever can't find this chart editor because you've clicked off, right click on your graph and go data range, go back to customize, and let's look at series where you can change the fill color. I'll maybe make that red. And if that looks good to you, I like this opacity thing. You can make the graph a little bit see-through or a lot see-through. It's up to you. I think maybe make it 90. And you can change how opaque the lines are. You can change the line type and the line thickness, whatever looks good to you. That's it for series. We can also look at, I'll scroll down a little here, horizontal axis. Let's go back to the chart editor by right-click data range and then click on customize. For horizontal axis, you could try changing the font again. If you prefer a different font like wide font, you can change again the color or the font size. Oh, there it automatically made it slant. I'll change it back to here, but you can make it slant too by adding slant labels and choose the angle. You have a few choices here of what slant you want. The vertical axis has similar but somewhat different options. Again, you could change the font and you could change the font size. You can also try adding this axis line, and you can also change the scale if you wanted. So if you wanted to go, instead of 0 to 25, for some reason you wanted a different scale, you could go from say 0 to 45. Just see if that looks better to you. I don't think it does. I'm going to go back to, how about 30? Let's try that. There's 0 to 30. And that's it probably for vertical axis. The last thing you might want to modify is grid lines and ticks. So you can take away those grid lines if you don't like them, but you can add them back. I like them. You can even add in minor grid lines. and you can have it choose how often the minor grid lines occur. You can put more or less grid lines in, just deciding what you think looks best. The same thing, you can add major ticks here. And again, you can choose some options, same thing with minor ticks. So a lot of options to play with here. Those are just some of the few things you can try for bar graph.